Chaos erupted the moment Donald Trump took to social media to announce a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, a ceasefire that Iran claimed never existed. Within minutes of his declaration, missile strikes resumed, militias were mobilized, and confusion spread throughout the Middle East. What was meant to signal the beginning of peace quickly devolved into a more perilous situation, clouded by misinformation and distrust. Welcome to Celebrity Cookies, where the tea is always hot and the stories come with sprinkles of surprise. Make sure to subscribe, leave a comment with your take on the story. Trump's announcement was unexpected. True to his style, it was grandiose, sweeping, and completely lacking in verification. He proclaimed, "Congratulations to everyone," asserting that Israel and Iran had agreed to a complete ceasefire in about 6 hours. He declared the conflict over, labeled it the 12-day war, and commended the stamina, courage, and intelligence of both parties, even adding "God bless the world" in all caps. However, none of it was accurate. Minutes after his post gained traction, Iran's state-run Fars news agency issued a strong denial. They stated that not only had they not agreed to a ceasefire, but they hadn't even heard of one. Their statement was stark. The ceasefire proposal put forward by U.S. President Donald Trump is completely false. No official or unofficial ceasefire proposal has been received from Iran. They further vowed to respond militarily to demonstrate the falsehood of Trump's claims. So what transpired? It seems Trump either prematurely announced delicate back-channel discussions or fabricated the entire situation. The repercussions were swift. While Trump was busy celebrating, explosions lit up the skies over Iraq. One-way drones targeted military sites at Camp Taji, Camp Victory, and Balad Air Base near Baghdad, believed to be launched by Iranian-backed militias, although this has not been officially confirmed. In Tehran, reports surfaced of a targeted assassination attempt on high-ranking Iranian officials, though details remain unclear. In Israel, the Air Force continued airstrikes across western Iran. Tel Aviv was on high alert, with intelligence indicating that Iran might retaliate with missile attacks. Despite Trump's claims, the situation was escalating rather than calming down. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu instructed his cabinet to refrain from commenting on any ceasefire news, and Israel remained silent. Iran, on the other hand, was outraged. According to the French news outlet France 24, Iranian diplomats had previously indicated a willingness to halt retaliatory strikes if Israeli aggression ceased by 3:30 a.m. Tehran time. However, by 4 a.m., Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated that no such agreement had been made. He clarified, if Israel stopped, Iran would stop. If not, the conflict would continue. So, what was the basis for Trump's statement? That's the question on everyone's mind, yet no one seems to have an answer. He asserted that a ceasefire would commence 6 hours after his announcement, claiming both parties would adhere to it and that the world would rejoice in peace. However, with both governments outright rejecting any agreement and missiles being launched just minutes after his statement, it's becoming increasingly evident there was no agreement, no peace, and certainly no resolution to this conflict. To complicate matters, Trump followed his peace announcement with a strange remark, thanking the Emir of Qatar for helping to prevent American casualties following an attack on a U.S. base in Qatar, an attack that had not yet been publicly acknowledged. Additionally, directly above Trump's ceasefire announcement was an advertisement regarding the revaluation of U.S. gold reserves under Title 31. It was surreal. Peace in one breath, gold reserves in the next. In the midst of this turmoil, Senator J.D. Vance appeared on national television to explain, or at least attempt to explain, what the administration might be considering. Vance, who has only been involved in foreign policy discussions for a few months, suggested that Iran's public denials might not align with their private communications. What they say publicly and privately can sometimes be very different, he noted. He further proposed that Iran's military capabilities, such as air defenses, missile systems, and even their nuclear program, had been significantly damaged by Israeli and U.S. coalition forces. They don't want to keep on fighting, he stated, and tomorrow really is a new day. However, that new day did not materialize. Instead, it brought more violence, mixed messages, and confusion. And importantly, no ceasefire. This leads us to a more profound question. Why would Trump make such an announcement without solid support? Was it mere wishful thinking, a strategic political maneuver, or a desperate public relations stunt? Regardless of the intent, the consequences are significant. Both Iran and Israel were already on edge. Announcing a false ceasefire could lead to mistakes, misjudgments, and unintended escalation. That's not just irresponsible, it's perilous. Iran's foreign minister later added to the tension. Speaking to reporters in Russia, he clearly stated, "There is no agreement on any ceasefire or cessation of military operations. However, if the Israeli regime halts its illegal aggression, we have no intention to continue our response." In other words, conditional de-escalation. Not an agreement, not a truce, not what Trump described. And while Trump was busy celebrating with the world, Iran made its position clear. It believes Israel initiated this war, and it has every right to see it through to the end. In Iraq, videos emerged showing the aftermath of drone strikes, with flames illuminating the sky over Camp Taji and debris from the attack at Balad Air Base scattered across the runway. Analysts suggest that these strikes were not random. They were intentional and coordinated, likely carried out by proxies acting on direct orders from Tehran. At the same time, Netanyahu gathered Israel's war cabinet to prepare for potential missile attacks, including worst-case scenarios that could involve Tel Aviv and Haifa. The Israeli Defense Forces have not received any formal announcement regarding a ceasefire. It's important to note how quickly the situation has escalated. Just 12 days ago, tensions were high but still manageable. Now, we are witnessing the most direct conflict between Israel and Iran in recent history, with repercussions affecting Iraq, Syria, and possibly the Persian Gulf. American troops remain deployed in the region, at risk of retaliatory strikes. Amidst all this, the U.S. president is posting on social media about peace, messages that are at best premature and at worst completely misleading. Critics have quickly condemned Trump's actions, with foreign policy analysts labeling it as diplomatic malpractice. Former intelligence officials warn that his statements could jeopardize covert negotiations or even put lives at risk by fostering a false sense of security. On Capitol Hill, both Republicans and Democrats appear taken aback. Some of Trump's supporters are trying to make sense of his comments, while others, like Senator Vance, are insisting that the announcement might be part of a broader strategy that has yet to be revealed to the public. Most experts concur that this was not the appropriate way to announce peace in the Middle East. War and diplomacy demand precision, accuracy, and clarity, qualities that were notably absent. The consequences of this are significant. In the early hours before dawn in Tehran, reports of further airstrikes were emerging. Israeli fighter jets were detected on radar carrying out deep missions near the western border of Iran, while Iranian anti-aircraft systems were operational. There was no ceasefire, neither in the air or on the ground, nor in reality. The gravity of this situation cannot be overstated. By proclaiming a peace that does not exist, Donald Trump has created a trust deficit. In conflicts as intricate and unstable as this one, perception becomes reality. A slight misinterpretation of intentions by either side can lead to escalation, putting civilian lives at risk and threatening to plunge entire regions into war. Currently, the U.S. State Department has not clarified Trump's statements, and there has been no official response from the Pentagon. The White House press secretary declined to answer questions. The silence is striking. The international community is observing closely. Russia, China, and the EU all have interests in this conflict, yet they seem uncertain about how to interpret Trump's announcement. The prevailing sentiment appears to be one of caution. Wait and see, and prepare for the worst. Perhaps that is the key takeaway. Regardless of Trump's assertions or the boldness of his tweets, this war is not over. Not yet. Not by a long shot. The next 24 hours will be crucial. Israel and Iran are at a critical juncture. Every drone strike, every unfounded rumor, and every misinterpreted signal could alter the trajectory of this conflict. The world is not celebrating the conclusion of a 12-day war. It is bracing for what lies ahead. And as the region holds its breath, one thing is clear: peace cannot be declared through a tweet. Not in this war. Not ever. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this situation, so please share your opinions in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on the story.